The night before the wedding, Lucas Miller's father, Carter, and his mother, Mary, caught my husband, Lucas, in the act. When I arrived, Lucas was pinned to the ground by Carter and Mary, beaten and covered in blood. Seeing me, Lucas dropped to his knees in front of me. I couldn't control myself. I betrayed you. I'm willing to cancel the wedding tomorrow and divorce you. I just beg you not to blow this up. I glared angrily at the man I had loved for 5 years, about to speak. Suddenly, a series of bullet comments popped up before my eyes. Don't listen to him. He won $300 million in the lottery yesterday. That $300 million is community property, half of it is yours. If you divorce, you won't get a single dime. Half of $300 million. I reached out and helped Lucas up from the ground. With a pang of fake heartache, I wiped the blood from his face. I love you so much, how could I possibly divorce you? Lucas stared at me, stunned. A flicker of disbelief crossed his eyes. After all, I'm not one to tolerate even a speck of dirt. Last time, he just gave a drunk female colleague a ride home. After I found out, I argued with him for a whole week. In the end, I still felt so stifled I wanted a divorce. Mary cried and begged me. And Carter kept promising that Lucas would never do it again. That's how I reluctantly gave him another chance. This time, I caught him red-handed. According to my usual personality, I would have divorced him without hesitation. But now, I was forgiving him. Seeing this, Carter and Mary immediately rushed towards Lucas. Mary slapped Lucas hard across the face and burst into wails. You heartless man. How could you do something so despicable again? That time you cheated on Fiona with that colleague. Carter and I went against our consciences begging Fiona to give you another chance. What did you promise us back then? Why can't you keep it in your pants and mess around outside? Hearing Mary's words, my heart ached. I instinctively let go of Lucas's hand. So he had betrayed me even that time. But he had sworn to God that he and Mia were just colleagues. He had sworn that he would only ever love me. My lips trembled with pain, about to speak. Lucas knelt down again. Fiona, I'm an asshole. I'm sorry. Not only did I cheat with Mia, but I also have a child with her. A child. I stared at him, stunned, tears streaming down my face uncontrollably. Lucas and I had been lovingly together for 5 years. The man who would call my name in his sleep. Not only did he cheat on me with another woman. He even had a child. I stepped back 2 paces, the words, divorce him, on the tip of my tongue. The bullet comments scrolled again. Don't be impulsive. That child is Mia's with another man. You can ditch the man, but you can't ditch hundreds of millions. Lucas has 58 days left to cash in his lottery ticket. For these 58 days, the protagonist just has to put up with a disgusting situation. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to squeeze out a smile at Lucas. Honey, your child is my child. If you and Mia don't mind, I'll raise this child. Lucas's face went pale. He jumped up from the floor as if he'd seen a ghost. He grabbed his clothes, threw them on, and ran out in a panic. Carter and Mary stared at me, horrified, and quickly chased after him. Watching their retreating backs, I let out a mocking laugh. The next day, I didn't receive any notification from Lucas about canceling the wedding. Nor did Lucas's bridal party arrive. I stared at myself in the mirror, fully made up and wearing a wedding dress. My nose stung. Fiona, don't be sad. You're marrying money, not this scumbag Lucas. So, I took my marriage certificate and drove to the hotel myself. But I still didn't see Lucas. Even Carter and Mary didn't show up. I wasn't angry, nor did I cry. I followed the MC, step by step, through the ceremony. The guests below whispered and gossiped. What's going on? Why hasn't the groom shown up? Did he get cold feet and not want to marry Fiona after all? Fiona was the one who pursued Lucas, so it's normal for him to have regrets, right? What are the Miller family relatives saying? Back then, Lucas's family was struggling so much. If it weren't for our Fiona, he wouldn't be where he is today. I stared at the relatives from both families arguing below. Scenes from back then instantly flashed through my mind. Many girls liked Lucas back then. But he was aloof, distant, and kept everyone at arm's length. No one dared to directly confess to him. The only time I dared to approach him was when I was drunk. I chased him for several blocks. Lucas, we're in our junior year. If we don't start dating now, we'll be old before we know it. Lucas, I'm different from them. It's not just your looks I like. Lucas, are you not dating because you don't have money? I'm easy to support. I have a lot of money. After that day, Lucas suddenly vanished from my life. The year before graduation, Lucas's dad suddenly broke his leg. It needed a lot of money for surgery. Lucas found me for the first time, and spoke up himself. "Fiona, aren't you rich? If you help pay for my dad's treatment, I'll be your boyfriend." At that time, I joyfully put in money and effort to help Lucas through his difficulties. After graduation, I begged my dad to help Lucas invest. From nothing, he built up the small company he has today. Although not extremely wealthy, we were comfortably well off. I always thought Lucas and I were partners who'd been through thick and thin, with deep feelings. But I never expected that the most important thing in his heart was only money. I snapped back to reality. And took the MC's microphone with a bitter smile. My voice trembled slightly. "Lucas drank too much yesterday and hasn't woken up yet. I asked Carter and Mary to stay home and take care of him." I looked at the hundreds of guests present and pulled out my marriage certificate. "Lucas and I got our marriage license a year ago. Today's wedding is just to celebrate. Please eat and drink well, I thank you all on behalf of the Miller family." After that, I returned the microphone to the MC and left the wedding venue. Half an hour later, I stopped at Carter and Mary's house, carrying a bag of supplements I'd bought for Lucas. I entered the electronic lock password as usual. But it told me the password was incorrect. I stared at the red electronic lock screen, laughing mockingly. Just as I was about to try another password, the bullet comments appeared again. The password is 135,790. Lucas and his family are currently figuring out how to force you to divorce him. Go in quickly and give them a surprise. I immediately entered the new password. The lock clicked open. I pushed the door open quietly. And Mary's voice immediately reached my ears. "Fiona is truly shameless. We didn't even go to the wedding. She actually went through the whole ceremony by herself. Last time you took Mia home and she found out, she wanted a divorce. Yesterday we said such terrible things, and she still didn't react." Mary suddenly lowered her voice. "Could she possibly know about your lottery win?" Carter immediately interrupted Mary. "Absolutely not. I think she just can't bear to leave Lucas. After all, she's almost 30. If she really divorces him, she won't find another good man like Lucas." Mary nodded. "Our Lucas, he's a gem you'd be lucky to find." I twisted my lips in disgust, about to speak. Lucas, who was leaning on the sofa, suddenly sat up straight. He stared at Carter and Mary with a sinister gaze. "If she still won't divorce, then..." He leaned closer to Carter and Mary, lowering his voice. But fragmented words still reached my ears. He said, "Then let's make Fiona the one at fault, so she gets nothing in the divorce." The one at fault and gets nothing? He's dirty himself, and he wants to throw mud at me? No way. I deliberately cleared my throat. All three of them looked at me in horror. Mary shrieked, "How did you get in?" I clearly changed. Carter forcefully pushed Mary. Mary immediately put on a vicious expression. She was about to speak. I immediately interrupted. "You didn't go to the wedding today because you must have been too tired yesterday. I don't blame you. I already showed everyone the marriage certificate. Even if Lucas wasn't there, everyone knows we're legally married." Legally married. That means community property, half for each. Lucas's face instantly darkened. He frowned at me. I didn't give him a chance to speak. I shoved the supplements into his arms. "Lucas, these are supplements I bought for you all. You'll have plenty of effort to expend going forward, so you'll need to keep your strength up." Lucas stared at the box of supplements, his temple visibly pulsed a few times. "Fiona, what do you mean?" I suppressed my disgust and intimately linked my arm through Lucas's. "Lucas, I've thought it over. No matter what you do to me, I won't ever bring up divorce. I'm almost 30, and if I divorce you, I definitely won't find a man as good as you. Before, I was young and impulsive. From now on, you can do whatever you want, I won't interfere." Lucas's face turned white, and he angrily pushed me away. The bullet comments scrolled wildly. "Fiona is amazing. Lucas is panicking. He'll go cash in the lottery ticket in the next few days. Once the prize money is in hand, the protagonist will immediately file for divorce. Don't give him an inch." For the next week, Lucas didn't show his face. But Carter and Mary clung to me like demons. Even when I took a shower, Mary would stand guard outside the bathroom door, afraid I would disappear. Until the 8th night. My room door was suddenly pushed open from the outside. I opened my eyes in horror and switched on the light. I saw a big, corpulent man staring at me with a lecherous grin. I shrieked in terror, frantically grabbing a pillow and throwing it at the man. The man was unfazed and chuckled suggestively. Don't panic. I'm Lucas's friend. He said you're scared of the dark at night, and asked me to keep you company. I'm very gentle. Lucas. That scumbag. To make me leave with nothing. He actually did something so sick and twisted. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to calm down. The bullet comments appeared again. Lucas has already cashed in the prize money. As soon as this creepy man succeeds, Lucas will rush in to take evidence and make you leave with nothing. Fiona must leave here immediately and find a lawyer to divorce him. Leave. Find a lawyer to divorce him. I repeated these 2 sentences over and over. Looking up, the man was already by the bed. He tore off my blanket and sat down next to me. Beautiful, I'm here. I stared in horror at the man lunging at me. Grabbed the vase from the bedside table. And smashed it hard on his head. He cried out in pain, clutching his head and falling to the floor. I seized the opportunity to jump out of bed. And kicked him hard in the groin. A more agonizing scream filled the entire bedroom. I cowered in the farthest corner, trembling with fear. Terrified tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. The bedroom door was suddenly thrown open. Carter, Mary, and Lucas stood at the doorway, each holding a phone, their faces excited. But when they saw the man lying on the ground, covered in blood, they all froze. Lucas was the first to react. He rushed forward, quickly playing the victim. Fiona, you're so shameless. You're bringing other men into our home. What exactly did I not provide you with? That you're playing such perverted games with another man. Mary snapped back to reality, pressing the camera button repeatedly. You shameless bitch, you're cuckolding our Lucas. I'm going to make Lucas divorce you. I'm going to make you leave with nothing. Carter chimed in. That's right. Leave with nothing. You won't get a single dime. I stared at Carter, Mary, and Lucas, trembling all over. For the past 5 years, I had treated them like family. Giving them my whole heart. What I got in return was their cold indifference today. My body shaking, I painfully moved to stand in front of Lucas. I raised my hand and slapped Lucas across the face. Lucas, you're the one who should leave with nothing. Lucas stared at me, bewildered. It took him a while to react. The next second, his palm landed on my face. Make me leave with nothing? In your dreams. He held up his phone. Even though I didn't capture the most exciting moments. But a man and a woman alone in a room, everyone knows what that means. This video alone is enough to prove you cheated. The sting of Lucas's slap burned on my left cheek, but the physical pain was instantly eclipsed by a cold, calculating clarity. I looked at the 3 faces before me, Lucas, his eyes wild with a mixture of panic and malice, Mary, greedily holding up her phone to record me, and Carter, standing guard like a warden. They looked like predators who believed they had finally cornered their prey. But they didn't know that the very air around us was filled with secrets they couldn't see. Right before my eyes, the glowing bullet comments began to scroll across the air. Again, luminous and fast. Look at his phone. The creepy guy is called Brock. He's Mia's ex-boyfriend and a local thug. Lucas paid him $50,000 to do this. There's a transaction record on Lucas's phone from 3 hours ago. He transferred it to Brock's sister's account. Don't let them delete it. Call the police immediately. The passcode to Lucas's phone is his mistress Mia's birthday, 0914. And look at the floor, the vase you threw fractured Brock's skull. He's going to lose consciousness soon. Use this to your advantage. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my mind was icy. I looked down at the fat man, Brock, who was groaning on the floor, clutching his bleeding head in his groin. He was already turning pale, his breathing shallow. You're filming? I whispered, my voice trembling. I forced myself to look weak, terrified, and utterly defeated. Lucas. How could you do this to me? You brought this man into our home. Don't play innocent, Fiona. Lucas snarled, stepping closer and waving his phone. You invited him. You wanted a taste of something else because I wasn't enough for you. This video is going straight to my lawyer. You're going to be divorced as the cheating party, and you won't get a single cent of my assets. Your assets? I let out a soft, broken laugh. You mean the company my father helped you build? Or the house we're standing in? Everything. Mary spat, stepping forward, her face twisted in a smug grin. You think you're so smart, Fiona? Running through the wedding ceremony alone like a clown today? We let you have your little show because we knew tonight would be your downfall. Tomorrow, the whole world will know what a disgusting woman you are. I didn't answer her. Instead, I took a deep breath, lunged forward, and grabbed the landline phone on the bedside table. Before Carter could stop me, I dialed 911. What are you doing? Lucas yelled, lunging to grab the receiver. I didn't let him. I pressed the speakerphone button and screamed into the receiver with genuine, raw terror. Help. Please help me. An intruder broke into my house and tried to rape me. I defended myself with a vase. He's bleeding on the floor. My husband and his parents are holding me hostage, trying to force me to say I cheated. Please, help. The address is. Lucas slammed his hand down on the cradle, cutting off the call. But it was too late. The operator had already picked up and heard my panicked screams and the address. Are you crazy? Lucas roared, his face turning an ash-gray color. You called the cops? Of course I did, I said, my voice suddenly dropping all traces of fear, replaced by a cold, steady calm that made all three of them freeze. I wiped the tears from my face and stood up straight, looking directly into Lucas's eyes. A strange man entered my bedroom in the middle of the night. If I didn't call the police, how would I prove my innocence? Fiona, you bitch. Mary screamed, raising her hand to strike me. Go ahead, hit me, I said, tilting my chin up. Hit me in front of the cameras. You're recording with. The police will be here in less than 10 minutes. I've already told them there's an attempted rape and a hostage situation. If they find fresh bruises on my face, and a bleeding man on the floor who entered using your passcode, who do you think they will believe? Carter's face went pale. He quickly grabbed Mary's arm, pulling her back. Mary. Stop. Lucas, what do we do? The police are actually coming. Lucas was shaking. He looked at Brock, who was now barely conscious on the floor, whimpering. Get him out of here, Lucas hissed. We need to get Brock out before they arrive. You can try, I said, leaning against the headboard and crossing my arms. But the community security guard at the gate logs every vehicle. And if you move a critically injured man with a skull fracture, and he dies or gets worse, you'll be charged with accessory to murder, not just conspiracy to commit sexual assault. She's right. Brock's skull fracture is serious. If they move him, he might get a brain hemorrhage. Lucas is terrified. He has $300 million sitting in his account. He's terrified of going to prison and losing it all. Look at his hands, they're shaking so hard he can barely hold his phone. Fiona, Lucas said, his voice suddenly changing. He took a step toward me, trying to soften his expression, though it looked more like a grotesque grimace. Fiona, let's not do this. We can talk. We're husband and wife. It was all a misunderstanding. I just wanted to test your loyalty. I didn't mean for Brock to actually touch you. Let's tell the police it was a roleplay gone wrong. Please. I looked at him, feeling a deep, profound disgust. This was the man I had loved for 5 years. The man who, just minutes ago, had slapped me and tried to orchestrate my ruin so he could keep his lottery winnings. A misunderstanding? I smiled coldly. We'll let the police decide that. Within minutes, the distant wail of sirens pierced the night. The police station was cold and smelled of stale coffee. Because of the severity of the call, attempted rape, assault, and domestic conspiracy, the police took the matter extremely seriously. Brock was rushed to the hospital under police guard, and Lucas, Carter, and Mary were brought in for questioning. I sat in the interrogation room, wrapped in a blanket, looking pale and traumatized. My lawyer, Mr. Harrison, whom I had called on the way to the station, sat beside me. He was a veteran family and criminal lawyer, a classmate of my father's, and incredibly sharp. Mrs. Miller, the detective said gently. Your husband claims that the man, Brock, was an acquaintance who had a key, and that this was a private marital dispute. He claims you were having an affair with Brock and that you attacked him when you two got into an argument. I let out a soft, trembling sob. That's a lie. I've never seen that man before. In my life. The lock password on our door was changed just a week ago by my mother-in-law. I didn't even know the new password until tonight. How could I have given it to Brock? And how did Brock get the passcode? The detective asked. I looked at Mr. Harrison, who nodded encouragingly. I believe my husband gave it to him, I said clearly. My husband has been trying to force me into a divorce. If you check my husband's phone, you might find communication between him and Brock. In fact, I believe he paid Brock to do this to frame me. That's a serious accusation, the detective murmured. The detective is about to ask for Lucas's phone, but Lucas is refusing to hand it over. The police are going to get a warrant. But tell the detective to check the bank transfer records of Lucas's mother, Mary. She's the one who transferred the $50,000 to Brock's sister, Cheryl Vance, at 9:15 p.m. tonight. Lucas was smart enough not to use his own account, but he used Mary's debit card. I looked at the bullet comments and immediately spoke up. Detective, if my husband is innocent, he should have no issues showing you his phone. But more importantly, please check the bank accounts of his mother, Mary Miller. I believe she transferred a large sum of money to a relative of Brock's tonight. I overheard them whispering about a transfer to someone named Cheryl. The detective's eyebrows shot up. He made a quick note on his pad and stood up. Excuse me for a moment. 2 hours later, the atmosphere in the police station changed completely. The police had executed a rapid check on Mary's bank records under suspicion of felony conspiracy. They found a $50,000 transfer to Cheryl Vance, who was indeed Brock Vance's sister. Furthermore, once confronted with the bank transfer and the prospect of facing up to 15 years in prison for conspiracy to commit sexual assault, Brock, waking up in the hospital with a severe concussion, sang like a canary. He admitted that Lucas had hired him to stage a cheating scene so Lucas could get a favorable divorce. When Mr. Harrison and I walked out of the station at dawn, Lucas, Carter, and Mary were still locked in separate holding cells, awaiting their formal arraignment. Fiona, Mr. Harrison said, his face grave as we stood on the steps of the precinct. This is a massive victory. We have a solid criminal case against them. This will make the divorce incredibly easy. We can file for a fault-based divorce immediately, and because of his criminal behavior, the court will heavily favor you in asset division. But, is there something else? You seem remarkably focused on his assets. I turned to Mr. Harrison, the cool morning breeze blowing my hair across my face. Mr. Harrison, do you know how much Lucas's company is worth? Roughly $3 to $4 million, Mr. Harrison replied. Since your father invested in it and it was developed during your marriage, you are easily entitled to half, if not more, given his conduct. That's just a drop in the bucket, I said quietly. Mr. Harrison frowned. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone. The bullet comments had stopped scrolling wildly, but a single, steady line remained at the bottom of my vision. Lucas cashed the lottery ticket 3 days ago. The post-tax amount of $218 million is currently sitting in a newly opened private wealth account at Crown Alliance Bank. The account is under his name, but he has already drafted a trust agreement to transfer the entirety of it to Mia's name to avoid asset division. The trust is scheduled to be finalized at 10 a.m. today. I looked at my watch. It was 6:30 a.m. Mr. Harrison, I said, my voice steady and commanding. We have exactly 3.5 hours to freeze every single bank account under Lucas Miller's name. Specifically, an account at Crown Alliance Bank containing over $200 million. Mr. Harrison gasped, his eyes widening in sheer disbelief. 200 million? Fiona, where on earth did you get this information? I have my sources, I said, looking him dead in the eye. And they have never been wrong. Can we get an emergency asset freezing order from a judge before 10 a.m. based on the criminal charges filed against him tonight? Mr. Harrison's legal instincts kicked in. The shock on his face turned into fierce determination. If he attempted to commit a felony against you tonight to fraudulently strip you of your marital assets, any judge will sign an emergency temporary restraining order on his accounts to preserve the status quo. I will wake up Judge Evans right now. We are going to freeze everything. By 9:45 a.m., Mr. Harrison and I were standing inside the sleek, high-end offices of Crown Alliance Bank's private wealth division. With us was a court deputy serving the emergency temporary restraining order. Turo. The wealth manager, a polished man in a bespoke suit, looked at the court order with a pale face. But Mr. Miller's representative is currently in the conference room finalizing the trust transfer. The funds are about to be moved. If you move a single cent of those funds after being served this order, your bank will be in contempt of court, and you personally will face criminal liability for aiding in the fraudulent dissipation of marital assets, Mr. Harrison said, his voice cutting through the quiet office like a knife. The wealth manager swallowed hard. I will halt the transaction immediately. I stood by the glass window of the lobby, watching him scurry away. Through the glass wall of the adjacent conference room, I saw Mia. She was dressed in a designer outfit, holding a luxury handbag, looking incredibly smug as she waited with her lawyer to sign the papers that would make her a multimillionaire. She had no idea what was happening. I pushed open the door to the conference room. Mia looked up, her eyes flashing with a mix of surprise and immediate hostility. Fiona? What are you doing here? How did you even get in? She sneered, sitting back in her leather chair. If you're looking for Lucas, he's busy. And let me tell you, you're wasting your time. Lucas doesn't love you. He never did. He only stayed with you because of your father's money. But now, well, let's just say we don't need your family's pocket change anymore. I know, I said, walking in and pulling out a chair across from her. I sat down, crossing my legs elegantly. You're waiting for the $218 million trust transfer, aren't you? Mia's face stiffened. The smugness wavered for a fraction of a second. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, come on, Mia. Let's not play games, I said, leaning forward. Lucas won the lottery. He thought he was so clever, keeping it a secret, trying to frame me for cheating so he could divorce me and hand the money over to you. But unfortunately for him, his little frame-up plan failed miserably last night. Mia scoffed, though her hands began to tremble slightly. What do you mean? Failed? Lucas has everything under control. You're the one who's going to end up with nothing. Lucas, Mary, and Carter are currently sitting in the detention center, I said softly, watching her expression crumble. They were arrested last night for conspiracy, solicitation of sexual assault, and domestic violence. The man they hired to frame me, Brock Vance, I believe you know him quite well. Mia's face turned completely white. The name Brock seemed to strip the air right out of her lungs. B. Brock? What does Brock have to do with this? She's terrified. She knows Brock is her actual boyfriend and the real father of her child. She told Lucas the baby was his so he would marry her and give her the lottery money. She was planning to run away with Brock and the money once the trust was finalized. The bullet comments lit up my vision like fireworks. I couldn't help but let out a genuine laugh. The sheer irony of it all was beautiful. Lucas had betrayed me, planned to ruin me, and was willing to go to prison all for a woman who was actively planning to rob him blind with her actual lover. You know exactly what Brock has to do with this, I said, leaning in closer, my voice a dangerous whisper. He confessed everything to the police last night. He told them Lucas hired him. But more importantly, he told them about your relationship. He mentioned that the baby you're carrying isn't Lucas's at all. It's his. That's a lie. Mia shrieked, jumping out of her chair. Lucas is the father. We have a DNA test. A DNA test forged by your cousin, Sarah, who works at the prenatal clinic? I asked, guessing based on the sudden flash of a bullet comment that confirmed. Yes. Her cousin Sarah forged the non-invasive prenatal paternity test. Mia sank back into her chair, her eyes wide with horror. She looked at me as if I were a demon who could read her mind. How? How do you know all of this? It doesn't matter how I know, I said, standing up and smoothing down my skirt. What matters is that the $218 million is now legally frozen by the court. It is community property. Because Lucas attempted to commit a felony to deprive me of it, my lawyer is asking for 80% of the entire sum. And since he's going to prison, he'll probably have to use the remaining 20% to pay for his legal defense and the massive civil lawsuit I'm filing against him. I walked to the door, then paused and turned back to look at her frozen, pale figure. Oh, and one more thing, Mia. Since Lucas is in jail, he won't be able to pay Brock's bail. And since the trust fund is frozen, you won't be getting a single penny either. Have a nice day. The next 3 months were a whirlwind of legal battles, but for me, it was the most peaceful time of my life. With Lucas, Carter, and Mary locked up, the domestic harassment stopped completely. My father, furious upon learning what Lucas had tried to do to me, used all of his connections to ensure that no bail was granted easily, and that the prosecution pushed for the maximum sentences. Lucas's company quickly fell apart. Without my father's backing and with its founder embroiled in a horrific criminal scandal, clients fled, and the company went into liquidation. During the pre-trial hearings, I saw Lucas. He was wearing an orange jumpsuit, handcuffed, his hair messy and his face sunken. He looked 10 years older. When his eyes met mine in the courtroom, they were filled with a mixture of desperate pleading and intense hatred. Fiona, he yelled as the guards led him in. Fiona, please. Talk to your father. Tell them to drop the charges. I was crazy, I didn't know what I was doing. It was all Mia's idea. She manipulated me. I sat in the gallery, flanked by Mr. Harrison and my father, watching him with complete indifference. His defense lawyer tried to argue that the lottery winnings were personal property because Lucas had used his own allowance to buy the ticket. But Mr. Harrison was prepared. Your Honor, Mr. Harrison said, presenting a stack of documents. We have the bank statements from the joint account of the marriage. The debit card used to purchase the winning ticket at the convenience store on 4th Street was a supplementary card issued to Mr. Miller, funded entirely by Mrs. Miller's personal salary. Not only was the ticket bought during the marriage, but it was literally purchased with the plaintiff's funds. The judge looked at the evidence and frowned at Lucas's defense team. The court finds no basis to exclude the lottery winnings from the marital estate. It is undeniably community property. Lucas let out a choked sob, burying his face in his hands. But the final nail in the coffin came when Mr. Harrison presented the evidence of Lucas's conspiracy with Brock. Furthermore, Your Honor, the defendant actively conspired to orchestrate a violent felony, attempted sexual assault, against his wife in their own home, for the sole purpose of rendering her the at-fault party in a divorce to strip her of her rights. This is an egregious violation of the marital covenant and a severe criminal offense. The judge's face was grim. In light of the extreme misconduct, the criminal conspiracy, and the attempt to fraudulently dissipate and conceal marital assets, this court rules in favor of the plaintiff, Fiona Vance. The court orders a division of the marital estate, 90% of all assets, including the $218 million lottery winnings and the remnants of the joint business, shall be awarded to the plaintiff. 90%. Subtracting taxes and legal fees, I was left with nearly $190 million. Lucas was left with virtually nothing, and what little he had left would immediately be seized to pay for his criminal defense fees and the civil damages for the emotional distress and physical assault he had caused me. As the judge slammed the gavel down, finalizing the divorce, the courtroom erupted. Lucas went completely hysterical. He broke away from his guards, lunging toward the barrier separating us. 90%? No. That's my money. I won it. I bought the ticket. You're a thief, Fiona. You took everything from me. Mr. Miller, sit down, the bailiffs roared, slamming him onto the table and pinning his arms behind his back. Mary and Carter, who were sitting in the row behind him in their own handcuffs, began to wail. Fiona, you heartless snake. Mary shrieked, her face red and tear-stained. We treated you like a daughter. How can you do this to us? Where are we supposed to live? We have nothing. I stood up, picking up my handbag. I looked at Mary, then at Carter, and finally at Lucas. You had everything, I said, my voice quiet but carrying clearly over their screams. You had a wife who loved you, a family that supported you, and a comfortable life. But you chose greed. You chose betrayal. You reap what you sow. I turned my back on them and walked out of the courtroom. A week after the final court order, I visited the local detention center one last time. Not to beg, and not to argue. I wanted to hand-deliver the final divorce decree. And the results of a court-ordered paternity test that had just been finalized. Lucas sat behind the glass partition, looking hollow and defeated. He picked up the phone slowly. "Are you here to gloat?" he whispered, his voice hoarse. "No," I said, sliding a document through the slot at the bottom of the glass. "I'm here to give you peace of mind." Lucas looked down at the paper. It was the DNA test results for Mia's baby. His eyes scanned the document, his pupils dilating as he reached the conclusion. At the bottom, probability of paternity, 0%. "No." Lucas whispered, his hands trembling. "No, this is a mistake. Mia she said it was mine. She swore to me. The real father is Brock," I said calmly. "The man you paid $50,000 to break into my room. He's currently facing 10 years in prison, and since Mia has no money left to support herself, she has already packed her bags and left the city, leaving your parents' house completely trashed." Lucas stared at the paper, a slow, horrifying realization dawning on him. He had lost his marriage, his company, his reputation, and his freedom. He was facing a 7-year prison sentence for conspiracy and assault. And the $300 million lottery win, the ultimate stroke of luck that was supposed to make him a king, had instead become the catalyst for his absolute, total ruin. He had traded a woman who loved him unconditionally for a mistress who scammed him, and a fortune he would never touch. "Fiona." Lucas began to weep, pressing his forehead against the glass. "Fiona. Please. I still love you. I made a mistake. Please, wait for me. When I get out, we can start over. We have so much money now. We can." I hung up the phone. I didn't want to hear another word. I stood up, walked away from the partition, and exited the visitation room. As I walked out into the bright, warm afternoon sun, the heavy metal doors of the facility locking behind me, I felt a strange sensation in my eyes. I blinked. The air in front of me was clear. No glowing text. No scrolling bullet comments. The final comment faded slowly into the light. "The protagonist is free. Congratulations on your new life, Fiona. Live well." I smiled, a genuine, light-hearted smile that I hadn't felt in years. I got into my car, turned on the music, and drove away, leaving the past behind me for good.